The morning the red sedan sputtered to a dying stop on that lonely stretch of country road, Samuel Reed had already lived a lifetime's worth of struggle before sunrise. He had left his tiny rented home before dawn, kissed his sleepy daughter on her forehead, and whispered a silent promise that somehow, some way, he'd give her a better life than this. He didn't expect that the broken-down car ahead of him, steaming like a wounded animal in the cold morning light, would change everything, his future, his fate, and the way he saw the world forever. And he definitely didn't expect that the woman standing beside it, dressed in a flowing black robe, arms crossed and looking like she was trying to hold her life together by sheer willpower, would be the person who held his future between her hands. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways life brings people together, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. What happens next, you won't forget. Samuel pulled his old pickup to the shoulder. His boots hit the pavement before the engine even stopped rumbling. He was a mechanic by survival, not by choice. He had learned to fix things the hard way, when things broke and he couldn't afford anyone else to fix them. He wiped his hands on his jeans as he approached the car, noticing the steam billowing from the hood. The woman beside it looked frustrated, exhausted, and strangely elegant even in her irritation. Behind her, a little girl in a pink dress clutched a stuffed toy and watched everything with wide, curious eyes. The woman seemed startled to see him approach, as if she'd been bracing herself for something worse than help. But Samuel simply nodded, lifted the hood, and let the rising heat blur the morning air between them. The engine told him its story instantly: an overheated radiator, a cracked hose, and a driver who had probably been pushing herself too hard for too long. As he worked, his muscles straining against worn fabric and the scent of burnt coolant filling the air, he felt the weight of her gaze on him, not judgmental, but something quieter. Something like realization. Sadness clung to her even though she stood tall. He fixed the hose with a spare patch he carried for emergencies, filled the radiator from a jug he always kept in the truck, and coaxed the engine back to life. When the car purred softly instead of choking for breath, she finally spoke, not with words, but with a look of stunned gratitude that seemed too heavy for a simple morning roadside repair. She reached for her purse, clearly intending to pay. Samuel stepped back and shook his head. He didn't fix things for money. Not anymore. Not when kindness was one of the few things he still had to give. The woman's throat tightened. Her eyes glistened like someone who carried a burden she couldn't talk about. Only once everything was done did she take a breath, straighten her back, and drop the words that hit him like a punch he didn't see coming. "I'm the judge for your case tomorrow." The world didn't spin, but it felt as if the ground shifted beneath him. She knew. She recognized him. Samuel Reed. The single father fighting for custody. The man whose ex-wife had dragged him through court for nearly a year, painting him as unstable, irresponsible, unfit. Tomorrow was the final hearing. The day everything would be decided. The day he feared more than any broken engine or overdue bill. And this woman, this stranger whose car he had just fixed without hesitation, was the one who would decide the fate of his little girl. She looked torn, as if she regretted saying anything at all. But she had rules, protocols, ethics she couldn't violate. And he had nothing but the truth, beating like a frantic heart inside his chest. The wind settled. The engine hummed. The little girl in pink giggled softly, breaking the tension without knowing she had done anything at all. The judge swallowed hard. Then she picked up her daughter, held her close, and drove away. Samuel stood in the fading mist, realizing he had no idea whether he had just ruined his chances or saved them. That night, Samuel didn't sleep. He watched over his own daughter, Mia, as she tossed and turned in dreams he wished he could soothe. He thought about the judge's face, the weariness in it, the gratitude, the surprise. He thought about how fate tangled people together in ways that seemed almost unfair, how one roadside encounter might influence the most important moment of his life. He remembered his past mistakes, the ones that had given his ex-wife ammunition. He remembered the nights he worked 2 jobs, the days he patched up cars in the driveway because he couldn't afford a shop, the mornings he braided Mia's hair crookedly because she liked it when Daddy tried. He remembered the tears, the loneliness, the desperate hope. Tomorrow everything could be taken away. By the woman whose car he had saved. Morning came like a slow, merciless tide. He put on the only clean shirt he had left, held Mia's small hand, and whispered steady words he didn't feel. The courthouse doors opened like the jaws of fate. And there she was. The judge. The woman from the road. But today, she was transformed, composed, authoritative, the weight of the law in every step. Yet there was something gentle in her eyes when they flicked briefly toward him before the hearing began. A flicker of memory. A flicker of truth. The testimony was brutal. His ex-wife painted him as neglectful, unstable, incapable. Her lawyer twisted half-truths into weapons. Samuel felt his heart ache with every word. He kept glancing at Mia, who sat quietly coloring in the corner, unaware that adults were trying to decide where she belonged. When his turn came, Samuel didn't have fancy words. He didn't have expensive lawyers. He had honesty, a tired voice, and love thick enough to shake. He explained his mistakes without excuses. He explained his growth without bragging. He explained how he had held his little girl through fevers, scraped together every coin to keep food on the table, and worked until his hands cracked because he refused to let her down. He didn't cry. But his voice broke. Just once. Mia looked up, confused, then toddled over and wrapped her arms around his leg. The courtroom went silent. Even his ex-wife hesitated. The judge watched them with a stillness that seemed to stretch beyond the room, beyond the law, beyond the moment. Something flickered in her eyes again, something human, something quietly breaking open. But she said nothing. Not yet. The closing statements dragged on like slow storms. And then the judge stood. Her black robe felt heavier today than it had on the roadside. Her voice, when it came, was firm but softened around the edges, as if she had pulled truth from deeper than her legal training. She acknowledged the complexities, the pain, the responsibility of her role. She acknowledged the mother's concerns. She acknowledged the father's past mistakes. And then she said something that made Samuel's knees weaken. She spoke of character revealed not in courtroom arguments, but in moments of pure instinct. She spoke of kindness given without expectation. She spoke of a man who helped a stranger on a lonely road, even when his own life was falling apart. She said she saw not just a father fighting for custody, but a father fighting for redemption. And in the end, she ruled not on pity, but on truth. Mia would stay with her father. His ex-wife would receive scheduled visitation. Counseling for both sides. A path toward healing instead of war. The gavel fell. The world shifted again, but this time, for the better. Outside the courthouse, sunlight rolled across the steps like a quiet blessing. The judge walked out with her daughter, passing Samuel and Mia by chance. Or maybe not by chance at all. There were no formal words between them. No violated boundaries. Just a nod, small, respectful, and deeply human. Samuel whispered a thank you that she did not ask for. Her daughter waved at Mia. And life moved forward. But something lingered in the air between all four of them, a reminder that sometimes the people who change your life arrive in steaming engines, cracked hoses, and unexpected coincidences. Sometimes kindness circles back in ways you never imagine. Sometimes second chances are given not because they are owed, but because they are deserved. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating stories that matter.